Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to BW Education. Today we have Ajitesh Basani, Executive Director of Acharya Business School, and we'll discuss the evolving landscapes of management education and how Acharya Business School is preparing its future leaders for the ever-changing business world. Welcome, Ajitesh ji.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much.
To begin with, how do you see the landscape of management education evolving according to the industry demands?
So management education has been there since quite some time, and the early formats of management education were heavily dependent on, the case study methodologies. So if you look at Harvard, for instance, that's the institute that started this whole wave of case study based learning. But of course, the context is very important when talking about how evolution of management education has taken place. Why I say context is because of the participants involved. So management education is given to different kind of people, right? So there are people, for instance, in countries like India, uh,
Yes.
majority of the aspirants who do an MBA, for instance, don't have a lot of work experience. And fundamentally, the program is designed for people who have work experience because it gives them a context, it gives them a place of reflection to understand where the gaps are with the industry.
Okay.
So, in terms of how it has evolved today, I think, uh, frankly speaking, we have seen multiple iterations, combinations of management education. We have thousands of B schools in India, and all of them operate differently, different approach, different philosophy towards what needs to be taught. Some swear by the case study method, some don't believe in it. So I think we are at a place today where there is integration happening with other domains, other fields, right from arts, right from humanities, right from technology. And this integration as such is essential because for the longest time, management education, people think you have an MBA, you have generic core subjects, and then you have specializations, and then you finish the course and you go out in the workspace. But today it's not that way, right? And
Yes.
cross-disciplinary learning is very important, and it's important that the curriculum talks about it. So if you're asking, if Mike is saying, what is it that management education has come to today? I would say it's a different combination of different ingredients. There is no one answer for it because of the very nature that management education is flexible in nature. So people look at it from different angles. Um, and the key here that we have to understand is it's ever evolving. So it'll continue to evolve. Even if I say something today and I say that this is the formula that we feel has been working for ABBS, tomorrow it may not stand true. So
Yeah.
keeping that in mind, it is, for instance, even us, right? We experiment a lot. So that's something I've been telling uh, for several times. In management education, you have to experiment. If you are not experiment, you're not really doing any kind of innovation as such. You're not bringing in aspects that are new or aspects that you can proudly say that these are my differentiators. So because Mayank, again, what works in ABBS may not work in an XYZB school
Okay.
because pedagogy is one, but the person who implements it has to make sure it's implemented the right way. So I think that's where we are at. It's a pot of multiple different uh, aspects, and
So I have another question for you. How can management education be more relevant and practical for students entering the job market?
This, I think this is the most,
Mm.
what do you call it? A question that is evergreen. You ask, if you
Yes,
can ask me 10 years ago, there'll be an answer. If you ask me 20 years later, also, this will be a relevant question because the whole idea behind management education is this, right? This fundamental idea is how are we aligned with the industry and what are we doing to get there? And we cannot fix it and say that, okay, this is done. So what we essentially at the core do is get a lot of industry inputs, get inputs from our alumni. They have been quite useful in getting a reflection on what's happening and changing our entire curriculum, changing our approach. So this happens every year, and twice a year these meetings happen where we get these inputs. And in terms of making sure that the students are aligned, I think it fundamentally has to be experiential learning, right? You cannot
yes,
take away that component of sitting and solving things, doing things. The application aspects of management is very important. So the learning part is it's easy, right? You don't need to come to college. In fact, you can learn by yourself if you really need to. But sitting and trying to apply, sitting and trying to feel the entire process,
mm,
uh, that is something we are trying to work on. All B schools across are trying to work on
okay,
because there is this percentage, 70%, 75%, some of them say 80%. We try to make it practical. Practical is on the job, site learning, live project based. So if that has to be the case, I mean, it's very difficult to make it 100% practical because somewhere you need a bit of baseline theory to support whatever you practice. You cannot practice without knowing. So making it more industry relevant, I think that is one component, the experiential learning. The other is to identify the immediate skills that are required with the industry. So when I say immediate skills, I mean I'm talking about the skills that are in demand. What is it that an MBA student needs to know, right? When he steps outside the college gates, the B school gates, what is it that the skill that is, valued? If it isn't valued, or there's no point. It's not about doing a bunch of certifications. Yes, we do have value-added programs for students that is specifically focused on ensuring this uh, aspect of, okay, is the student relevant in the workspace?
okay,
If that relevance is not there, then we're doing something wrong.
yes, yes,
So fundamental thing, we started advanced Excel. That's a skill that I feel will not go out anytime soon.
mm,
Post which we do a lot of different programs. Right from business analytics, we do teach them a bit of coding, specific to 2 or 3 languages. But
okay,
as a business student, it makes sense to focus more on the visualization tools, the application-based analytical tools. So, for instance, right, I'll give you an example. PGDM, for instance, this last batch, they were exposed to more than 20 to 25 different tools, right?
like,
Uh,
like, tools like,
MySQL, right from Python, right from, you know, all the statistical tools that
okay,
focus on the students' ability to uh, analyze data. So these are aspects that we didn't uh, decide to do. We brought in industry people. So
okay,
the whole idea is, can an existing practitioner teach them
okay,
in, let's say, 3 hours or 6 hours, and talk only about where this tool is utilized in his workspace or her workspace.
okay,
That gives students that, okay, this is the tool, this is the problem, this is how the tool is used to solve that problem. So we never had this before, but we thought we'll try this approach where we bring in industry people and talk about the tools that they use. And if it makes sense, a lot of students do align with that, and then they realize, okay, this is something that is interesting, and I think I can take it further. And they end up specializing a lot more in that. And by the time they finish their course, it's a lot easier for them to navigate because they have first-hand experience. So
Okay.
skills like this, I think experiential learning, and I think end of the day, if it is aligned well, and the right placement approach is done, it becomes very easy to get students industry ready.
Okay. So, are there any specific technology advancements that have a significant impact on the management education particularly?
So, Mike, we are in this middle of this disruption that's happening
Yes,
across the
yes,
world. So sometimes even I think, is there any utilization or actual use for what we are teaching? Because there's so much automation happening, there's so much that the field of analytics is growing. Sometimes I question, okay, what can we do differently with our curriculum? So
yes.
just recently, for instance, we have a program called MBA Business Analytics under Bangalore University. So
Mhm.
this is probably we were the first ones to get this course, and the thing about this particular course is it has both management and technology. But then
Okay.
you again need a baseline understanding of statistics to kind of navigate through the course because 30 to 40% is analytics based. There is no management concepts. Only the remaining 60% is management. So to do that, it took us 1, 2 years of understanding where the baseline is, what we need to include and what we need to remove from the syllabus.
So, can you brief us about how ABBS is providing practical knowledge to prepare students for the current job market? Like,
Yeah, so like I said, experiential learning, when I talk about experiential learning, one thing that we introduce at both MBA and PGDM is like a socially relevant project or campus to community project that sensitizes student in the first year towards,
okay,
looking at the world more than just profits, looking at the whole social angle towards business, and helping smaller entities solve their smaller problems that um, they have. So I think that kind of helps students kind of start their whole journey towards this experiential learning. And post which is a lot of project-based work. They do have 2 internships. For instance, our PGDM students do a 4.5 month internship program. So um, these are all, see, again, 4.5 months, close to 9 to 12 credits. That's a lot of work actually. So we ensure that the students are, you know, aligned, not purely by putting them in the industry, but also ensuring that they have some practical exposure within the campus experience. And organizing conferences, all these workshops, there's a lot of things that students do by themselves. And like I just mentioned earlier, we do bring in workshops from the industries where it's a direct transfer of ideas, knowledge, everything from the industry person to students. So they all come with their laptops. They're all working on a problem that is, given to them in that same time, and it becomes a very discovery-based learning for a lot of the students because
okay,
they're not typically used to working on
okay.
live problems.
So I'll add a small question to it. Like, it's regarding the placement process. So how are you preparing your students for the placements that?
So placements is something that, of course, if you're talking about an MBA program,
Yeah.
everyone talks about return on investment. They say
Yes.
it always starts on the back. The question starts with what are your placements, and then it comes back to what do
Yes.
you teach.
Yeah.
So this is something that we have refined over the years. We have a very at the course have a very strong placement committee and a student body that runs, drives, operates this placements completely. So we have around 20 odd students who sit and do this.
Okay.
And of course, we have a placements head. But the journey of a student who joins an MBA, PGTM, and ABPS, it starts from year one. And by the time he completes year one, he has completed certain um, portions of communication modules.
Okay.
It's a little different for MBA and PGTM, but essentially the idea is prepare the student have good written oral communication. Like if
Okay.
that communication is not taken care, it becomes a little challenging. And then
Yes.
we started including aptitude at a very early stage.
Okay.
Earlier, we did it, let's say, a little later or uh, fag end of the placements. But then now we started understanding aptitude is something that only works if a student practices. And
Yes.
if you want him to practice, you'll have to give him time. So that training of aptitude starts a long way ahead. And also because, most interviews you need to crack the first round, you'll have to crack aptitude. Otherwise, there's no point in preparing for
Yes.
your
Mhm.
personal interviews. So after that, of course, there are several rounds, and then we have particular partners who help us uh, navigate with the entire uh, interview process. Because a lot of students have questions. They don't know, okay, is this the right approach? How do I apply? What is the right way of putting up an application? How do I attend interviews? What am I supposed to be prepared with?
Okay.
So these questions are all addressed, and it's specific to domains, specific to companies. So every company is different. So you will have to align your particular CV, your approach, your contribution to that organization needs to be clear. Uh, th- so that's something that we teach students. And apart from that, I think what we have also seen that works really well is we organize pool campus drives. For
Okay.
instance, tomorrow we have a pool campus drive. It's called Kairos 2024. So we do invite other colleges for this campus drive. At the same time, we invite over 20, 30, depends, sometimes 40 companies to come and interview students, not from ABPS alone, but from other business schools as well.
Okay.
One, it creates a sense of competition, a healthy competition. The other thing is that it becomes a one-stop destination for companies, for students to get jobs. And this has helped many students get those first, offer letters. And apart from this, we organize, conclaves, HR conclaves from the placements
Okay.
department. This helps build a genuine, what do you call it, network with the HR, because one, we get to know them better, they get to know us better.
Yes.
And the other thing is we understand the requirements directly from the horse's mouth, which is HRs of companies saying, this is what we're looking at.
Okay.
So this has opened doors even for students because they never get the opportunity to directly communicate with the HRs in a very informal setup, like a conclave or a conference. So I think that aspect has helped the placements kind of propel. And today we have a certain structure that's already in place, which takes care of placements from different backgrounds of students. So even the domains that we see, we see the hiring. So the hiring trends keep changing every year, of course, but we identify where that changes and we see the gaps where the opportunities are. For instance, the banking sector, we do get a lot of good placements from South Indian Bank, from ICICI, Axis, all of these banks, because we know one their hiring season, and then we know their requirements, and we prepare students for those particular job roles. So uh, we go about it by industry,
Okay.
by such. Yeah.
So can you share some statistics from this year's placement or the latest placements?
So in MBA, we have around 87% of students who have been placed already. And then
Okay,
PGDM, we have
that's great.
around 96%.
Okay.
So, so one thing that we have realized is MBA and PGDM, there's a slight difference in the cycle um, of the number of students who get placed because of the way the program is structured and because MBA is part of Bangalore University and um, their dates are a little different. So that's the only reason. But apart from that, for instance, I'll just show you Federal Bank. We have gotten offers from 12.5 lakhs CTC.
Okay,
And
that's
then
great.
there's a 22.5 lakh package from a real estate company and 7.5 lakhs from no broker, 7.8 from property pistols.
Okay, that's great.
Asian Paint 6.5 lakhs. So see the spectrum is there. We have even at 5 lakhs, we have, for instance, um, ITC Limited at 5.25. So the number of the companies that are there are quite extensive, right? We have more
Yes,
than 70, 80 different companies coming in, uh, apart from the regular recruiters, right? And if you're looking at just the CTC aspect, it varies from the companies. Like for instance, um, usually what happens is an ITC or an Asian Paints for an MBA school like at ABBS, we don't get packages at 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs. They do recruit at those packages also, but we look at getting our students at a little mid segment salary entry. So we're looking at 6, 7 lakhs. So how we try to equate, see, ideally we would want them to get bigger packages, but then um, it's also important to see um, the kind of fees that we have, right? So we ensure that a student who's coming, right, we tell them how much ever you're paying for your MBA or PGDM, make sure that you're able to make that money back within 1.5 years at least.
okay.
That's at least a good, you know, approach to understand that, okay,
Yeah,
I'm at least in
yeah,
the right direction. I'm
yes,
not overspending,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
uh, placements as such has been quite good. And overall, if you look at the market, the MBA hiring has slowed down, right?
yes,
If you look at
yes,
overall, like in the
right,
country, even if you look at the IIMs for the first time, because the economy is taking a bit of a hit,
yes,
going to change its gear from that bull to a bear kind of a market. So everything else will fall into that same place, right? So what we have seen also is for the longest time, I have never kind of advocated. I know it's not the right approach, but I've never openly advocated entrepreneurship because I've always felt it was a very high risk area for a young MBA student who's barely got any experience to get into. But today, I think we are in such a place in India today that it's worth taking that chance. And see, either which ways, you either have a job which is giving you a steady package, but at the same time, we are at a time where many people are experimenting and doing things on their own. So we are ensuring that a certain segment of our student batch is going actively into entrepreneurship. And we're building a separate cell for which we can have students, not just uh, ideate, but also incubate their entire businesses within the college till at least they find their own 2 feet and then they're able to go out. So I think this is the current state. We are ensuring at the same time placements are happening regularly, but on one side we want students to also become good entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So we have good mentors. Thank God we have very good mentors when it comes to this area, and they do look at students and their business plans and see how they can navigate with scaling up or setting up their business entities.
Okay. So my next question would be regarding the national education policy. So do you see any specific challenges implementing that in the management education, or how is your institute is adapting its curriculum according to NEP?
So see, firstly, the NEP came out 4 years ago when
Yes,
it came out. But if you look at the policy as such, right, it's a very broad, holistic, multidisciplinary. That's the approach, right? So
yes,
when a policy like this comes after what, 34 odd years,
yes,
32, 32 years, um, it's very difficult to, say that these are the changes required and we have to get them implemented right away and we'll see changes. It's extremely difficult because the nature of higher education is so diverse in India. And this policy is mainly made for keeping in mind the grassroots institutions. When I say grassroots, I mean they want the smallest of village in India to have an impact. It's not about the AVBS or any other institutes which are autonomous or which have NAC. They will survive and they will do well irrespective. But the policy helps in bringing all kinds of institutions under one roof and say that the entire education system needs to be more multidisciplinary.
okay,
So I previously mentioned, so there's nothing specific towards management education. They don't say that management education is needs to be run this way, but that element of multidisciplinary which I mentioned, how do we bring in psychology? How do we bring in humanities into business, into management? So that integration is going to become the biggest challenge. Identifying and learning and assessment based on probably competencies will become more crucial than just writing exams. And management education has to kind of accept and bring in these elements,
yes,
the art, the liberal education into this. And if that's happening, I think we will see some changes in which the students themselves will respond to, right? For instance, right, for example, we have an international conference coming up, the 15th International Conference. This
okay,
is in July 11th, 12th, 13th. And this conference talks about peace economics, peace science, disaster management, spirituality. It's not directly related to management, but it's a management conference, but it's not directly related. But it has aspects of management, aspects of um, humanities, aspects of peace science, all of that. So it kind of amalgamates two, three different domains, and then you come out with something. I think the best results come out when you do these combinations and not necessarily focus on marketing or HR or any of that. And I think NEB will enable management institutes to break that silos, and we should be looking at those. um, because more often than not, those subjects have a direct correlation with what we teach in marketing, what we teach in finance, what we teach in HR. So I think that's the kind of impact we will have. And I think the approach has always been to experiment more with the curriculum, with MBA or with the PGDM programs. So keeping that in mind, I think NEP has very little in terms of what uh, how to do, but the what to do part, they've kind of given a direction.
Yeah. So thank you for your time today, Ajitesh. It was pleasant talking to you. We wish you and your team all the best for the future.